Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Inspirational Anna Show. Today is a unique show, a fantastic one that I've been excited all week working on, researching, so that we could come and tell you beautiful stories of Black people from all over the world who did massive work, continue to do massive work, and whose work has inspired not only Blacks, but humanity itself. From a singer to a freedom fighter to a UN peacekeeper, what can we say? Black stories are not only about slavery and suffering and all of that. It is also about freedom fighters, about people who get up and stand for what is right, that at the end of the day will serve all humanity. Welcome to the show. And before we go on, I want to read a poem by our guest today called My Story. And of course, today's program is storytelling. We'll do the best to make it as fun as possible. And who knows, maybe something else could come out of it. I'm always dreaming, as you know. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this poem called My Story, written by Nana Yaa Yeboaa. It says, My story. I write to future science, an ode to ancestral worship, memoirs of pain penned when I no longer respire to inspire, to expunge toxins of pessimism, occluding your existence. Be enlightened to the steps of your foreparents, so you may walk, talk, dance, and connect. Heed the voice of my spirit, in truth to trueness of grace. Take the film of despondence clouding your sight across the horizon, thumping varying rhythms, drowning my essence. They perceive me changed. I tell my own story best. On the gong, I speak. So you, connecting to that credence, may understand my heart throb. Let me narrate my take, and do not percolate jazz as your creation. Remember on the plantations where Negroes chanted of home in sorrowful ululation, melancholy and sweet, and mothers standing on thresholds in hopeless expectation, swaying to rock and roll, waiting the return of lost sons, whose cries are strangled on magnolia trees, moans resound through moonless nights, their sisters in white cotton skirts. Raped of their innocence, they sing the blues, waiting for brothers long dead to return. Across the ocean, my rhythms reverberate. Generations of Anansi tales dispersed in wind. Afar, dormant memories awaken, embracing drum beats of consciousness. The djembe, unreplicated. The talking drums, unduplicated. I shall narrate my story. Ooh, I have goosebumps right now. Today is all about storytelling, and this poem, which is called My Story, is just a prelude to what we're about to do. So without any further ado, let me tell you about Nana Yaa Yeboaa, a poet. I will call her a revolutionist, somebody who understands the deep core of who she is, what her culture is, what her culture means to her, and what ancestry means to her. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome, she's also a writer of 3 books. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome my friend, my colleague, my partner, I don't even know, she's everything. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Nana Yaa Yeboaa.
Hey.
Hey, sister. How are you?
I'm good. I'm great. So you didn't add the sister to it.
Oh, I'm sorry. She's my sister. She's a poet. She's a writer. She's an earth person. She understands who she is. The core. I mean, the core. You know what I'm saying, sister?
Thank you.
How did you find the poem? How did you feel listening to your own writing?
You know, when you when the words are coming forth and writing themselves, because you pouring it out, normally you know you're writing.
Yes.
Understand, but you don't really pay much attention because it's pouring out.
Yes.
When I read it, I take it differently, but to hear you read it, I had to go back and look for a copy of my book from the bookshelf. It's like, which page is that? Oh, wow, who is this? Yes. So then it makes me go back and reflect on the power of story.
Yes.
Because even though I've written this poem about my story, it encapsulates just a brief period of time of story, because there are more stories that need to be told.
Yeah.
From me, from you, and from other Black people around the world, that their stories are transforming society. As you and I are speaking, we are also transforming the next generation.
And you know what? When I was reading it, I was getting goosebumps because it so relates to this time, Black History Month. It relates to the work that you and I are pushing in spite of the difficulties. It relates to the fact that we understand the story. So when I was reading it, I was saying to myself, did this sister of mine even know what she was writing? Because it resonates too well.
Very good question.
It resonates too well.
It
Said,
does.
when you're writing, it's pouring out, but you don't even know the depth.
The depth, yes.
Until I think sometimes when you hear it read back to you. So today we're attempting to tell 6 stories of different people from different places. So let's not waste any time. Let's get to it right now.
Okay.
And we are going to start with none other than Nana Yaa Asantewaa, the queen herself. There you go.
Beautiful.
Nana Yaa Asantewaa, just mentioning her name is giving me goosebumps. And before I give you just a gist of who she is, I'm going to give you a quote in which she took the reins of power to fight the British. And she said, if you, the men of Ashanti land, will not go forward, then me and the women of the Ashanti land will. I shall call upon my fellow women. We will fight. We will fight till the last of us falls in the battlefields. Now, you have to understand from what I'm researching is that she wasn't exactly a big woman.
No.
In stature, right?
As the accounts will say, Oyenipa Krokrowa.
Oyenipa
was a petite woman.
She was a petite woman.
Yeah. Now, wait here. Since many people around the world will be listening, let me interject very small.
Okay.
The name, the meaning of the name
Okay.
And then you add the story.
Okay.
Nana Yaa Asantewaa, Queen Mother, Yaa, Thursday born. Asantewaa, the name Asante. The origin of the name Asante is because of war. A people brought together because of war. War in the Akan language, in Akan tree, tree language, Asante tree, asa. War, asa. In the war, because they came together because of war. Yes. Now, so the male Asante, when you hear Mr. Asante, whatever, that name Asante, that is the root meaning of the name. It has two roots. Now, Asante Newa, the word that precedes the Asante feminizes. It's like, so you have Asante Newa, Asantewaa, which is her,
which is the feminine.
The feminine. And should you hear a name, for instance, like Dakwa, it's Daku Newa.
Okay.
You understand?
Awesome.
Okay. So history, I will leave it here.
That's history right there.
Exactly.
So this powerful petite woman, from my research, said she was a skilled farmer, right? But because of the matrilineal line of the Ashanti culture at the time, where women are able to become queens, she became a queen through her brother, who brought her to be a queen. Now, minding her own business, the British, who at the time during slavery and all were taking up Africa and Africans' riches, now wanted to fight the Ashanti people to capture the golden stool. Now we will tell you the story of the golden stool another time.
Sikedwa
Kofi, the golden stool, a treasure that is Ashanti. Like, I'm getting goosebumps. Like when you say the golden stool, it conjures up something different in us Ashanti people. It gives us power. It gives us courage. It makes us feel who we are.
It is the soul of the Ashanti nation.
It is the soul of the Ashanti nation. So the British, as they were fighting to capture the golden stool, they took the king at the time and sent him off to Seychelles so that they could have power over the people. And as the British were making grounds coming for the golden stool, and the people were sad and they were planning how they were going to stop the British people from coming, Yaa Asantewaa had no time for thinking. Yaa Asantewaa had no time. Let's just say she had no time for foolishness, to be sitting around thinking too much. So, as the person who now stood in place of the king, she said, if you, the men, will not go forward, then me and the women will. We shall call upon my fellow women. We will fight. We will fight till the last of us falls in the battlefields. And in my reading, they said, when she said that, she charged the men up. How could they sit and let the women go to war? But by this point, she had charged the men, she had charged the women, so the war began, and they fought. They fought. The British lost people. The Ashantis lost people. They fought. And Yaa Asantewaa was also captured and sent to Seychelles. But because she stood tall, nobody could touch the golden stool, the soul of the people. Ladies and gentlemen, my research this week, I was like, look at me, 5'9", tall lady, woman. What am I to be afraid of? If Yaa Asantewaa actually stood, galvanized the people to fight for what belonged to them, as Ashantis. Oh my God, Black history is awesome. Sister, can you add a little bit?
I can. And you know what? I think this conversation, this show should have been just on Yaa Asantewaa.
Because there's a lot.
Exactly. Because there's a whole lot. There is an Anakan proverb that says that Oba tochioa actually bema ebo.
When a woman buys a gun, it leans on a man's chest.
But this is dispelled by Yaa Asantewaa.
Yes.
Oba etonitua onua kasa
tsuti na adie. Oh, thank you very much. So we're on a roll here. We are on a roll. Yes. So from Yaa Asantewaa, you can imagine what my week has been, trying to figure out my own self, trying to understand things. And then I'm reading about all these people who have fought, that faced even worse things. So my next one.
Remember, so if you don't understand, I am, since I'm a polyglot, I will be delving between the Akan language and how do you call it, the English language. There was the first Yaa Asantewaa War.
Yes.
And then the second Yaa Asantewaa War. Ghana did not become colonized as early as other countries because of this. Because the Asantewaa, I don't use the word Ashanti because that's a corrupt English word.
And the colonized word.
Yes. The Asantewaa no suahu. I lost my train of thought.
So hold it there for a moment.
Yes.
Because it looks like we're going to have to come back because next month is International Women's Month.
So let's pause it for then.
So we'll use it for then. But now I am so honored, so glad, so ready to talk about Madiba Nelson Mandela. Look at that. A gentleman, a freedom fighter, a warrior, a humanitarian, a philanthropist, a leader, a president. There aren't enough words to describe this man, Nelson Mandela, which we're going to have to do a whole show on in June. So Nelson Mandela, this man fought with his whole being, his whole life for the people of South Africa. And at the end of the day, when you think about it, he didn't fight only for South Africans. He fought for humanity itself, the core of humanity, the fairness of humanity, Blacks being treated simply as human, but nothing else. And for that, he spent more than 20 years behind bars. His children grew up without him. His marriage had issues, personal issues, and yet this man said he is not afraid until the day that every Black South African has freedom, he would remain in jail. And so he did. How many of us have that kind of courage in this day and age to simply get up and call truth for what it is? I remember as children growing up in Ghana. In Ghana, we didn't have all these black and white problems. But on TV, every time we turned on TV, whites were just beating Blacks mercilessly, releasing dogs on them, like all kinds of inhumane things. And so this man, he started the youth group, the ANC youth group, through which he grew and became a leader and continued to fight apartheid. And then, after spending all these years behind bars, one day, one simple day, he was released from prison. To the world's relief, to the world's joy, to the world's, I can't even begin to explain what Nelson Mandela's release did for people. Now, mind you, on the day that Nelson Mandela was released and many months before and after, the whole world was rejoicing and living in anticipation. So when I say that Nelson Mandela's work wasn't just about South Africans, but a human right, basic human right of everybody treating everybody the same.
And before we continue that, there's a very key point I want to make when it comes to Nelson Mandela. The reason why story is very important. Aside from him being jailed and being released and everything, at one point in time, European countries and the United States called him a terrorist. I don't think that part of history needs to be acknowledged. The language that was used on Nelson Mandela then, when a man fights for his freedom, he was called a terrorist. But for those who were terrorizing and keeping Black people in place, were never terrorists. This is the power of language. When we are speaking, we often do not pay attention to the words we use and how we define them. Once upon a time, this man was called a terrorist. Then the language changed because his people did not give up on him, and he did not give up on his people.
Yeah.
That is why we have this story to tell.
And it must be told, because now that you talk about him being called a terrorist, this week there's a video circulating in the United States that just breaks my heart. There were two young boys fighting, one black, one white, in the mall, with people standing around.
And the young white youth provoked the black dude.
And the black youth was actually defending a younger white kid who was being bullied by this white boy. Now, when the police showed up, they put the white boy nicely in a couch and tackled the 14-year-old black boy who was trying to save a younger white boy. Tackled him. One police officer put his knee on his back. The other police officer, who is female, put her knee on his shoulder.
So
I bring this story up because you're talking about the fact that they called Nelson Mandela a terrorist, when all he was doing was fighting for his people to be free. Exactly. Can this go on? Can we keep doing this? George Floyd's story hasn't gone anywhere. It wasn't too long ago that we saw George Floyd's story. So the question is anybody listening? What are we, both as black, whites, whoever, what are we doing about such situations? The mother of the 14-year-old black boy said, if it had been in the dark somewhere, they would have killed my son and nobody would have known. And even the young kids that were watching this were going, this is because he's black.
Exactly.
So now, so that we don't miss too many of the stories we've prepared, let me give us a quote that Nelson Mandela gave. He said, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. And so, ladies and gentlemen, there is more, but this is Nelson Mandela. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Sister Nana Yaa Yeboaa, because I know she got something to say.
Well, I do have something to say. and I will try not to be too, too long, because time. How much longer do we have?
We have another half hour.
We have another half hour. So these narratives, I'm going to delve on. I'll start with Sidney Poitier. So I'll start with our brother, father, grandfather, who came through to be in this part of the world through the transatlantic slave trade. So Sidney Poitier, if you've watched many movies, is an upstanding, dignified, absolutely dignified. Even in his old age, 90s, he's as handsome as any human being
Yes.
can come. Yes. And the core of him is, I'm going to read a quote from him when he came into cinema. He said, "In my first experience in front of a camera, my first experience on stage was a totally dimensional awareness of life. A totally dimensional awareness of life. All of what I feel about life, I had to find a way in my work to be faithful to it, respectful to it. I can't play a scene that I don't find texture of humanity in material."
Mm.
In a sense, don't bring me any bullshit material. I ain't doing it.
Like thief, slave, maid, gangster.
Exactly. No. You are not going to denigrate me. So he was born in Florida he's actually original from Barbados. His parents were tomato farmers. They had come to Florida on a boat during that time to sell tomatoes. He was a premature baby. So he was born and then taken back to Barbados, where he grew up. At 12 years of age, he dropped out of school. He enlisted in the army at a young age, at around 14 or so, but he got himself out through some very wise means. And at almost 15 plus 16, he ended up in New York because Florida would not give him what he needed in his life to succeed. So he came to New York. He could barely speak the kind of English that I would say the New Yorkers spoke then. He tried for an African theater, and the director laughed at him that his lines were all over the place. He couldn't speak proper English because of his Caribbean accent. So for anybody, it would have been the end of it for him. But this is the core of the man that I fully, fully, fully respect. That did not deter him. He picked up a job as a janitor and still studied. He studied as an actor. And through that, one day, an actor did not show up. He said he would do that part. He did his part, and that became his journey. So preparation, meeting opportunity, success. And this is the man we have who over the years, so many of us have heard about Raising in the Sun. If you've not watched it, par excellence, performance. Now my French is even trying to come out.
Stop it right there. Stop it.
Performance. Lilies of the Field is also another performance he did. In the Heat of the Night. Guess Who is Coming to Dinner? Now, I have a quote on Guess Who is Coming to Dinner. That actually ties in with the first quote about humanity and awareness of life. Because Coming to Dinner deals with interracial relationship. In this, he says, and I quote, "You are my father. I love you, but you think of yourself as a colored man. I think of myself as a man."
Read it again. Say it again.
You, my father, I love you, but you think of yourself as a colored man. I think of myself as a man. So you, my sister, you think of yourself as a colored woman. I think of myself as a woman. That is humanity. That is dignity. That is respect.
And that is believing in yourself to the point that you stand against anything that will belittle you. You define who you are. You don't leave who you are to somebody else. You define who you are and you walk in your authenticity.
To top it off, Sidney Poitier was the influenced Denzel Washington.
See the influence? It is a necessity. Influence, leadership, having somebody who looks like you do what you do.
Exactly. Denzel Washington influenced our king, who is now gone.
Wakanda for real.
Chadwick Boseman. So you see that when these stories, when people live exemplary lives, they mentor, they reach people beyond their immediate environment. And their stories become not only their singular story, it has become everyone's story. Based on this, Denzel Washington holding this man in esteem, this man having the patience to listen to Denzel Washington when he was starting out, Denzel paying when
the tuition.
The tuition for Chadwick Boseman. It has changed the outlook of Black children, of children, that they too can be. And that is where I will end his story.
So what we're getting from here, you just mentioned 3 generations of men.
Yes.
Because one generation stood tall against being minimized and pushed forward, he affected Denzel, and Denzel affected Chadwick. Generational blessings.
And God only knows how many people Chadwick has affected.
I mean, that movie was wild. It wasn't just Black people going to see the movie. It was every race of people. So now, like you said, we can't even begin to count the number of people that Sidney Poitier has affected. In other words, what are you dreaming about? What's your goal? Move so that one day, Black, white, Chinese, brown, whatever, so that one day you too will affect humanity. All right, sister, let's roll.
Yes. So the next, I will go to my sister from another mother, a Ghanaian author by name Esi Edugyan.
A Ghanaian Canadian.
Okay, so a Ghanaian Canadian author. And this is where the idea of story and home and the intersectionality becomes muddled. She is a Canadian of Ghanaian heritage. Her parents are Ghanaian and she was born in Canada, just like our children.
Yes.
That's right. Yes. And she is a beautiful writer. I have read a few of her books, and I think I have one here, which I haven't touched yet. I am yet to. This came out not too long ago.
What is the title?
Out of the Sun, on Race and Storytelling. Oh, look at that. On Race and Storytelling.
Hold it up more to the camera. Wow.
Can you see that?
Wow. Yes. Amazing. Yeah.
On Race and Storytelling. So I'm yet to start this reading.
So what we're doing here is we went to Ghana, right? Then Ghana, but at the UN level, because Kofi Annan served as the Secretary General of the UN, which is a global peacekeeping organization. And then we went to Sidney Poitier.
From Barbados.
So we've gone to the Caribbean.
US, yes.
Right? US and Caribbean. And now we're on our home turf, Canada and Ghana.
So yes, we are back on our home turf in Canada. So she was born in Calgary, and she studied. She had a master's in fine arts, and she teaches creative writing and the rest as well. Why is Esi Edugyan's important? I love the way this girl writes and talks about her stories. Her stories are not just limited to Ghana. Her stories really provokes and invokes a historical context of looking back at how people, for instance, Black people, have been portrayed along the lines. And from how she writes and the in-depth that she writes, for instance, in her book Half Blood Blues, she writes about this young man, a jazz musician in Nazi Germany, and he is mixed race. And just imagine the life of a mixed race person at the height of Nazi Germany. And the discrimination that is going on, and the many minorities that we whose stories are not even less heard of, who died during this Nazi era, period in there. So those are some of the diggings that she does. She tells uncomfortable stories.
Right.
She researches and tells uncomfortable stories to bring our awareness as human beings to how we've treated ourselves and how we continue to treat ourselves.
And it is important. I like the way you said, she tells uncomfortable stories. Sometimes the uncomfortable stories have to be told. They have to be faced so that the next generation, or those of us that are in the present day, don't take things for granted. Because slavery has left its marks all over the place, just like the story in the US this week. So the uncomfortable stories that have to be told so that our consciousness will be awakened to what is going on and what needs to be done and what we can do.
Yeah. There is another book that she writes, Dreaming of Elsewhere, Observations of Home. And when I did read, it's a small book, so when I read it, I started laughing because I understood where she was coming from, in the sense that I am home. This is my home here in Brantford. I'll say I am a hometown girl here in Brantford.
Right.
But also thinking about home, where I haven't lived half of my life.
But you keep longing. Even for the simplest of things of home. The simplest of things. And in your mind, sometimes your mind, your heart, you even wonder, would life have been this way if I hadn't left home? Sometimes you ask yourself that question.
So sometimes I wonder if the sound of the drums will still sound the same.
Oh, I like that. Sometimes I wonder. That sounds like the title of a book.
It was actually a poem I used to perform long time ago.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
All right. So I like her writing because she delves into places that would rather cover up and live our lives.
Yes.
That's an authentic writer.
Yes. As somebody who say slavery is past, just get over it. But we can never get over it. As she said, the clause of slavery, discrimination, racism is still imbued and embedded in us. different systems, structural systems and whatnot. So until we will keep telling those stories until those who are narrow-minded start opening up to see the world bigger. Now, before I'm done with her, I'm just going to read a quick quote from her in one of her books that she wrote. And she says, and I quote, "Negroes are God's creatures also. With all due rights and freedoms, slavery is a moral stain against us. If anything will keep white men from heaven, it is this." As somebody asked, I forget who exactly it was that was asking if they go to heaven, if white people will be there. If they will be there, then they will like to stay in their heaven here on earth.
Right here on earth.
Because what will be the difference? It will be the same or worse.
It will be the same.
Yes.
May God help us all. May He forgive us all. But may He continue to enlighten all of us, blacks, whites, brown, dark, whatever. May He enlighten us, because treating anybody inhuman is treating all of us inhuman. But for us black people, it is glaringly obvious that we're looked down upon, that we're seen as second class by a group of people. But by God's grace and in God's own time, we shall all be the same. But we cannot be lazy and keep complaining. We must work. There is work to be done. We cannot be lazy and fall into the trap of feeling sorry for ourselves. That will not be beneficial to any of us. And so now we come to Kofi Annan, a man whose mere presence just used to blow my mind. Whenever I would see him going to negotiate peace talks, and the way he would hold his suit and button it, sit down and speak for the world to listen, it just used to drive me wild. It inspired me. And it says Kofi Annan was a diplomat who served with the UN almost all his life.
That's right.
He served prominently at a time when there was war between Bosnia and Herzegovina, where so many people were losing their lives. It was horrible. But it says here, the man was skillful at handling negotiations. And so he was handed the task of negotiating peacekeeping operations between UN forces and NATO forces. These two forces had to work together to bring peace to these war-torn areas. And at the time, as a Ghanaian kid, as a young Ghanaian girl, what? I was like, man, this is our person, our personal person.
It was
on the global level. You see?
So, as you telling his story, I didn't want to interject, but I need to interject because name, even his name, let's break his name down.
Yes.
So those who don't know, Kofi is Friday.
A Friday born.
And normally I say Kofi Babone. Kofi nya Babone. Your friend is a Kofi ye Babone. Esa say Kofi nim ne ye bone. Enti on pesa ye de beye no. Enti ni on pesa ye de beye no ni aka kire ne so no ne ye Babone. Entesa. Kofi Annan. We say Annan in tree, but enye Annan, Annan not so nine.
Oh, the fourth.
Inti. So this is one thing that we also, you and I need to bring to attention, that when we are mentioning African names from the continent, or let's say particularly Ghanaian names, we should always give salutation to the culture in which they come from, to the strength of the story of the name, how it came about.
Because giving meaning and and the culture behind it makes it more powerful than just any passing name. So, Kofi.
Did I tell you I love you?
I love you more, sister. I love you more. And so, Kofi Annan rose through the ranks. He rose through the ranks and held such high positions and led with dignity, class, and style until he rose to the rank of the UN Secretary General, the topmost. Do you know what that means to an African child? Do you know what that means to a Black child? Do you know what that means to a Ghanaian child? I remember how we just used to be proud. Even though the man was under pressure, we were feeling his presence and feeling his power and feeling the fact that he had risen. He had risen from the soil of Ghana, grown from the soil and the loins of Ghanaians, of culture, of tradition, and was running the world. Who ran the world? But in this case, it's Kofi Annan. Now, it was. But now, the man left his legacy as a diplomat, as a peacekeeper, and all of that. But right now, when you go to Ghana, there is actually a structure standing. The Kofi Annan Center of Excellence, where it says, the center houses West Africa's first supercomputer. The meeting and lecture rooms, as well as 102 wireless network, guarantee that A11 can host close to 1,000 people at any given time. The Kofi Annan Center, I'm telling you, my sister, the Kofi Annan Center is on my way home. Like when I go to Ghana and I'm going home. Labadi. And every time I go past it, I'm like, endless possibilities. Yes. Every time I see that building, I'm like, I see the man in his role as the UN Secretary General and Peacekeeper, and then I see the building. What a person who was born and raised in Ghana has been able to do in work, and now the legacy stands, where people go for leadership and peacekeeping training. My sister, take it from here.
Rise above your circumstances. On the way to, you meet people who will tear you down, and equally we meet people who will encourage us on our path. You and I know that even to sit here and have this conversation, we've had our ups and downs, but we refuse to give up. I wrote a poem. I think I will have to dedicate that poem to you. I will dedicate that poem to you. It's the river.
But hold on.
The river walk. Yeah.
There's a quote that hit my heart by Kofi Annan when I saw it. It says,
okay,
today's real borders are not between nations. Let me get the glasses because this is too deep to miss anything. It says, today's real borders are not between nations, but between powerful and powerless, free and fettered, privileged and humiliated. Today, no walls can separate humanitarian or human rights crisis in one part of the world from national security crisis in another. This is by Kofi Annan. The man exemplified power, class, grace, and let's just say the man was handsome, very handsome. All right, my sister, you can take, it's your turn. We only have 10 minutes left.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I wish we could play one of Angelique Kidjo's song.
No, we didn't prepare. We didn't prepare for that. You should have told me.
I don't know. It just popped into my mind.
Well,
yes. So that is the queen. That is
That's
the
the
woman.
queen herself.
So let me give some context to her background, and then we proceed. Every time I look at her, number one, she reminds me of the strong women of the Dahomey Kingdom. So if you watch, they were the women in Wakanda protecting the king. Yes. Angelique Kidjo always reminds me of that. Her power, her strength. It's like she is a, pardon my French, no bullshit woman. She is a woman on a mission and a purpose. She's a musician extraordinaire. Benin was, she was born in Benin, Ouida, I think around the 60s, 1960, the 60s or so. So that would make her about 61 years old. But she has influenced African music so much so. She now resides in France and sometimes in the United States. Her music is unparalleled, and she now bridges between the present, the new generation of artists. So you call on her, she will come. And that is the motherhood, the mentorship, the support. You know, when you go and you see her and you say, Ma, you kneel and you greet.
Papa, no, respect.
Respect, because being in her presence, listening to her song, even uplifts you. Her life was not just easy, but she never gave up. That tenacity to say, I am going to do it, I will do it. And the key people that needed to help her came into her life. That is why we have today Angelique Kidjo to speak about. You know, the BBC, I saw she's a Grammy Award winner. Yes, she's a Grammy Award winner. She has performed on so many big stages. In 2010, the BBC Focus on Africa recognized her as one of the 50 most iconic figures on the continent. The Forbes also noted her as one of the 40 most powerful celebrities in the world. And NPR Music in Africa, actually in 2013, noted her as Africa's greatest diva. Now, I have a little bit of a thing with the word diva. She ain't a diva.
She's a queen.
She is a queen.
A queen.
A warrior queen.
A warrior queen.
Diva thing is
you
not.
sort of water it down, because to us Africans, when we say you're a queen, it's a whole different ball game.
That is right.
It's a whole different ball game.
A key quote I got from her, I've heard her speak, and the wisdom. I'm not talking about fake wisdom. I'm talking about wisdom over years of nyansa or any adwene, over years of experience. When you listen to her, she should be the queen of Africa. If she's not, I'll be.
Hey, I hope the world is ready.
If the world is not ready, me, I am ready.
That's all.
So, Mama Angelique Kidjo, our big sister, our mother, our auntie, our everything, she says, your brain is your greatest weapon. See, so if you are listening from any part of the world, I want you to understand this, especially if you are a person of color. Listen to this very well. Your brain is your greatest weapon. Connect it to your heart, and you can go anywhere. I will not delve too much into things, but the heart also has a brain. And this is called neuroscience. So I'll not go into it, but she may not know it, but she has given us The greatest gift, your brain is your gift. Do not let it go to waste.
Your brain is your gift. Say it again.
Your brain is your gift. Connect it to your heart, and you can achieve anything.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, okay, today we've heard about Nana Yaa Asantewaa, that petite warrior, an African woman, a Ghanaian woman. And then we heard about Madiba, Nelson Mandela. I bow. The man fought with his whole being. And you know what's beautiful about Nelson Mandela's story? We could dwell about the time he spent in prison, but he came out and ascended to be the first Black president of South Africa. There's a quote that I really enjoy. It says, "Gold comes to its purest form after it's been through the fiery furnace." So wherever you are, whoever you are, if you're suffering, if you're struggling, keep your eye on the prize, because you're going to get there. And then we came to, sister, who did you talk about?
So I talked about Sidney Poitier, the dignified, respectful,
a man who refused to be defined by slavery and racism and
skin color.
He took his stand and did what he had to do. And then who did you speak about first next?
Esi Edugyan.
Esi Edugyan, our own Canadian writer who goes deep to those uncomfortable places that we would rather not go, to tell the story, to awaken our consciousness and our biases so that we can be awakened to what's going on. And then, of course, my man Kofi Annan, the ultimate peacekeeper, who inspired me as a leader and inspires me every time I drive by Kofi Annan Center. And sister, who did you conclude with?
Angelique Kidjo, Mama Angelique, the queen of actually, we are going to tag her. She's the queen of my Africa. If she doesn't accept it, I will take it. She is the queen of my Africa. She is that emblem of womanhood, of warriorhood, of queenship that all these women have, all these women from Africa or of African descent have shown us.
And so you rest your case. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it has been myself, Anna Edu, and of course, my sister, Nana Yaa Yeboaa, as we bring you stories of hope and inspiration, of struggle and triumph. May you struggle and triumph. May you be inspired. Until next time, do learn about Black history. It is beautiful history, and see what we all can do to make this world a better place. Stay blessed, be encouraged, be inspired. Bye, sister.
Bye. Thank you.
This was awesome. I loved it.